wanted to, I actually made a couple of videos, but I just want them, it's easier to remake them than copy them over on the camcorder. Just to record them right in, to describe, basically I'm going to describe my philosophy. I'm going to take some time to do this. And I'm gonna call it relativistic skepticism. And because that describes it pretty well. I mean, I would say the relativistic skepticism, in short, is like my coordinate system for everything else. I think it's a way of interpreting, because the skepticism is the epistemology of how knowledge works. That all knowledge is theory. Some people sometimes say to me, I don't even know what that means. All knowledge is theory. And then the relativism is actually how you get knowledge. You triangulate on it, right? Through relationships. You analyze relationships, and that's what relativity is all about. Is that to get knowledge, you analyze relationships. Okay, so that's both doubt and then how you overcome doubt, and yet you always have doubt, and that's what skeptical relativism is. And then, but really at more of a core of what defines this philosophy of mine is has to do with the error of being. The error of being, you know. Now, I don't really intend to simplify. I don't want to simplify existentialism, which is, of course, describes a lot of work in philosophy that's complicated with a lot of different ideas. But insofar as that it's based on existence and being, that's an error. In my philosophy, views being, the concept of being, as an error. Things can't just be. Nothing ever, that implies something stays the same, and nothing ever stays the same. If you take an electron, here's an example of something that stays pretty much the same. Every electron, exactly the same electrical voltages, and all of the physics is the same. And yet, they're all unique because they have their own position, and they're also always changing because they're always changing position. You can't stop them completely. There's sort of tricks you can do, quantum physics tricks that, you know, are beyond the scope of this discussion. But basically, the point is everything is constantly changing. So we don't have being. Being is just an approximation that works out well enough. What we actually have is that we're becoming. And there's a lot of things in philosophy where this error of being asserts itself. You know, the concept of identity. That, for example, being makes you think that your identity is inside you. That is an essential characteristic or a quality or even a substance. And then it's confusing the fact that, well, but I used to be 3 foot tall when I was a little boy, and now I'm, you know, over 6 feet tall, and how, you know, am I this? I'm a different material, so am I the same? Well, the identity is more from outside. You are identifying something, so of course you can see the continuity, and you are different. It's just like a wave comes to the shore. It's different water molecules all, you know, every moment as the wave passes through the water molecules, and we're the same. We're passing through the material world as a continuity of energy transfer. So when you think of things as becoming, then you think of this energy transfer as changing, and you name that, and then identity is the identity of the wave. But if you think of being, then you get all confused about, but I'm different, because when you have points on a line, that's like being. Here's another example of being versus becoming, where the error has shown itself. Okay, with calculus. You know, prior to calculus, you thought of a line as broken up into an infinite number of points. People still talk about it this way, an infinite number of points. What it turned out with Newton's calculus is that you can never get a line by adding up points, because you always need more points, and they never connect. There's always a gap. So it's not even a matter of needing more points. It's a matter of no matter what you do, there's a gap between the points. So in calculus, they think it through differently. It's like if you start with a line and you split it in half, and then you split the halves in halves and go on and keep splitting things up as small as you can, you always have a little tiny line segment, an infinitesimal, they call it, and you think of it as infinitely small, but it's not zero, it's just infinitely short. Now, if you add those things back up, you get a lot, you get an actual distance, and it's a way of dealing with the infinity in the math, and you can take infinite sums. And integrals are involved with splitting these curves up in this way. And so if you split a line in half and add the halves together, you're going to get 1. If you split it in half twice and do that, you're going to get 1. If you keep doing that, no matter how many times you do that, you're still going to get 1. And so it defeats Zeno's paradox and all kinds of things to look at things this way. And it's all the difference of being, because you see, a point is being. It's an essential characteristic of being infinitely precisely specific, and that's all it is. There's no extension, no variance. It's infinite. It's being. The point is an essentially represents being, whereas an infinitesimal line segment in calculus represents becoming, because even though that's just that tiniest moment of becoming, things are changing just ever so slightly. No matter what, there's a moment there. It's infinitely small, but something is happening in it. It is a little section of a twisting line. It's a cross section cut out, and it has a very thin but existent extent, and that is what existence is. Tiny little segments of something happening, and that's becoming. So in mathematics, you get calculus out of this, and that applies to the real world much better than the previous notions did, and it's useful for physics as a result. And I don't think it's any coincidence. This era of being is, God only knows how old. I mean, seriously, it could be millions of years old. But it's an error. There's no doubt. There's no doubt about it being an error. Now, how can there be no doubt when I'm a skeptic and I believe there's doubt about everything? Well, firstly, there is doubt. I can manufacture doubt myself about it. But there is also a concept of beyond a reasonable doubt and probability so low that you make your bets without them. And in my kind of skepticism, you do assent to what appears to be the case. So it is hyperbole to say that there's no doubt. Well, all I'm really saying is I do not entertain, I do not buy. Here's the thing, I'm saying it now so that people can present their doubts to me. So I do entertain doubts. I want to hear the doubts. And if there's one that's really great, I would love to hear it. So it's also just bravado that I think I've heard a lot of arguments about these things. And I don't think I do not think anybody's going to come up with a good demonstration against this idea that being is an error.